movement that we must accompany and encourage. Today's forum should also support Somalia on the path to debt relief and access to lending from the international financial institutions. On the European side, I am glad to announce today an additional package of around €200 million in support of Somalia's stabilisation. This includes a new €100 million contract for state building and state resilience. We want in particular to help the federal government deliver on its citizens' needs, and we want to help improve trust between the federal government and federal member states. Somalia can and should be a strong federal country where central and local authorities work together, each one with its own competencies and specificities, towards the common goal of serving the people of Somalia. There is no better way to foster a sense of belonging and of citizenship within a common Somali homeland. The rest of the package will help rebuild state structures, and particularly security forces, mainly in areas that have recently gone back to the control of the Somali authorities. This is also a contribution to the government's transition plan to help the Somali authorities take full responsibility for their own country and for the citizens' security. Because we all know that economic recovery must go hand in hand with an improved security situation. In preparation of today's forum, the European Union co-hosted with Somalia a security conference here in Brussels. Our engagement for peace and security in Somalia continues to be as strong as ever. As you know, the European Union is active in Somalia with 3 military and civilian missions, training the police and the armed forces, and fighting piracy off the Horn of Africa's coast. We have recently extended our missions until the end of 2020. We have also adapted their mandate to an evolving situation on the ground and to new needs from our Somali partners. The European Union has also been a leading international supporter of AMISOM, the African Union's mission to Somalia, since its very inception in 2007. And I would like to thank my friend, the Commissioner of the African Union Commission, because we have worked very well together in this as well as in many other fields. Thanks to AMISOM, your African brothers and sisters have given a great contribution to peace in Somalia, and they continue to pay a high price in terms of human lives. Peace in Somalia is an interest we all share, and the peacekeeping mission is still essential for the time being. So the European Union will continue to support AMISOM, and in a few minutes I will sign, together with the African Union's Commissioner for Peace and Security, my friend Ismail Shergi, a new €114 million package to finance AMISOM's activities in the second half of this year. However, for security and stabilisation to be sustainable, the Somali authorities have to be in the driving seat when dealing with security in their country. And this will not happen overnight, we all know it, but progress has happened and continues to happen. The government and the federal member states have agreed on a transition plan, which has been fully endorsed by the international community. The plan is to be operationalised in 3 pilot locations. The transition will be phased and based on clear conditions. This transition entails a gradual assumption of security control by Somali forces. In the meantime, AMISOM will continue to evolve in parallel as conditions are met, with the final goal to withdraw and hand over to integrated, trained and effective Somali forces. This process will only be successful if we all keep a unity of purpose, following the path chosen by the Somali authorities. And here the African Union, AMISOM and the troop contributing countries have a crucial role to play. It is essential that we operate through the coordination structures we have agreed to in a transparent and complementary fashion. This is a very special moment for the Horn of Africa. I'm also glad to have our friends from the region here and for the broader region. Ethiopia and Eritrea have taken a historic decision towards peace and reconciliation. This is a message to all of us. Every obstacle can be overcome with political will and with courage. As the UN Secretary General said, I quote, "A new wind of hope is blowing across Africa. We have a collective duty to support such hope both inside Somalia and in the region. International tensions only help Al-Shabaab. We all have an interest in a peaceful and secure Somalia, and we all have an interest in a peaceful and secure Horn of Africa. This is our common region at the crossroads between Central Africa and the Gulf, between the Mediterranean Sea and the Indian Ocean. The window of hope in the country and in the region is an opportunity we must and we cannot waste for the people of Somalia, but also for our common and troubled world. I thank you very much. It is now my honor and pleasure to give the floor to the President of the Federal Republic of Somalia, His Excellency Mohamed Abdullahi Mohamed.
Good afternoon. Excellencies, distinguished guests, and ladies and gentlemen. It's an honor to address this partnership forum for Somalia. Looking around the room, I see many friends, colleagues with whom we enjoy an effective and meaningful partnership in Somalia. I recognize the high-level delegation from all partners in this room, which include ministers, ambassadors, and other senior government officials. Given the importance of this partnership for Somalia's progress, I thank you all most sincerely for your participation. The Somali government extends its sincere gratitude to the European Union and its member states, Sweden, for co-hosting this partnership forum in Brussels, the home of the EU itself. We are cognizant that Somalia would not have made such clear and tangible progress without the partnership of other vital delegations represented here today, in particular the African Union, United Nations, USA, Turkey, and all of the EU member states. The centrality and the unity of our goal to achieve sustainable development in all its forms in Somalia. It is an honor that we are able to convene our progressive discussions on Somalia's future here in Brussels, following our last successful meeting in Mogadishu 6 months ago. This is not the first time important Somali partnership meetings were held in Brussels, a city which embodies a vital message of unity and common purpose and exemplifies progress after painful destruction like nowhere else in the world. It is the place where Europe's pledge of never again returning to war is preserved and upheld. We are determined to learn this lesson and move forward to build a strong, secure, progressive and prosperous nation for the benefit of our resilient people. In this globalized world, there has to be a reliable need for an effective partnership. We are all benefit from enabling opportunities and overcoming common challenges like insecurity, poverty. Such challenges are the underlying causes of illegal immigrations. In the past, the scale of Somalia's challenges has made its relationship with partners somewhat unbalanced. We were not able to play our role to the fullest extent in setting the priorities, in leading the implementation of initiatives, or in directing the resources. While we are sincerely grateful to all our partners, we want Somalia to be the tip of the spears in all reform processes and their implementation. We must be trusted to lead our transformation with renewed capacity and commitment. In all our valuable discussions in this partnership forum, I hope you realized that the Somali government is committed to take greater responsibility to generate and disperse domestic revenue, to achieve debt relief, to strengthen security, to progressively shift from humanitarian aid to development support, and to prepare the path for Somalis to engage in a domestic process in 2020. All these national efforts are vital to our partnership, and we will lead towards the realization of our set goals, allowing Somalia to play its rightful role as a primary player for state building. Our discussions that largely revolve around interconnected issues proves the importance of effective and diverse partnerships and strategic coordinations, both internal and external. I acknowledge that there are no quick fixes to resolve all Somali's challenges, but strong commitment, hard work, and consistent evaluation are needed to achieve tangible results. On that note, there should be no single issue that would be allowed to undermine a cohesive process towards stability, accountability, and development. The interconnected nature of inclusive politics, security, economic reform, and building human and environmental resilience should be emphasized. The urgency of working with a mutual accountability framework. We will accelerate progress by capitalizing on our individual strengths and collective resources for maximum impact for the benefit of the Somali people. I am confident of our collective commitment, and I am sure together we will fulfill our promise of moving forward together. Since the Somali Partnership Forum in Mogadishu in December 2017, Somalia has taken significant steps to move forward in inclusive politics, economic recovery and reform, security, and the fostering of resilience among our people. I have personally taken the lead, supported by my able Prime Minister Hassan Ali Khaire and his cabinet to ensure that what was agreed in all these areas was addressed in many cases and implemented. Since then, we have successfully completed the second International Monetary Fund's staff monitoring program, and we are now progressing a third one with an even more stringent set of benchmarks. We have implemented a 5% sales tax on imports, and this has so far raised domestic revenue by around 1 million per month. We acknowledge that inclusive politics is a must if we are to fully overcome the past quagmire of poor governance, injustice, and conflicts. Accordingly, as part of the political reform agenda, we have initiated the vital constitutional review process to address the anomalies in the provisional constitution. The National Constitution Convention held in Mogadishu on the 13th of May this year brought together all relevant Somali stakeholders to discuss and guide the future direction of our country. Inclusive politics is always a challenge, particularly so in a recovering post-conflict state. We are determined to get it right and sustainably move forward as a people and country. No Somali shall be left behind or forgotten in this process. The historic Baydhabo Agreement has established a common position and framework for internal partnership on inclusive politics, economic reform, security, and resilience. This is a significant step in the right direction, especially since the process was and will remain Somalia-led and Somalia-owned. For this, I am grateful to all the leaders of the federal member states of Somalia, as well as our international partners. In addition, this government is engaged all stakeholders, beginning with the Somali people and the business community, to play their part in our national transformation. Since our last partnership forum in December last year in Mogadishu, our government has increased its engagement and partnership with the private sector. We are tackling corruption and human rights violation through legislation and education, and we are nurturing the stable consensus-based politics that will allow us to achieve inclusive politics. I am proud to announce that after many years of trials, we have finally begun biometrically registering the Somali soldiers. In addition to that, we have completed a viable transition plan. There is a concrete evidence of our government's commitment to security reform, economic progress, and strengthening partnership. In the next 6 to 12 months, the federal government will continue to concentrate its effort on advancing the key priorities of state building on inclusive politics, economic reform, security, and building resilience. While the role of our valuable partners will continue to be critical, this role support must focus more on strengthening Somali institutions' capacity to lead and deliver for Somali's for Somali people. The mutual accountability framework is the basis of Somalia's partnership with the international community. The Somali government is working tirelessly to improve the systems and processes that will further increase our ability to deliver vital basic services to our people. In this respect, notably progress has been made, and I wish to acknowledge all our major partners, including the international financial institutions and the EU, who are pledging more resources. Your support for Somalia's economic development allows us to work towards debt relief and the expansion of opportunities for the Somali people. In all our bilateral and multilateral discussions, we agreed that Somalia's progress will be holistic and inclusive, with accountability leadership from the federal government. We are all committed to this. The recent National Security Council meeting in Baydhabo and its outcome proves our strong willingness to collaborate and cooperate. Somalia and its federal member states see a future of common prosperity where we cooperate meaningfully on the path to inclusive development and engagement. Accordingly, we urge all our international partners to incorporate this into their support and assistance. Somalia is one entity, united by a shared vision and driven by a common purpose in favor of all the Somali people. I am proud to say we are truly together. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, much progress has been made in improving our country's systems. This would not have been possible without the support of many of our valuable partners. Therefore, in line with our fiscal, banking and economic reforms, we urge all partners to commit to using our country's system to channel their development support and assistance. Somalia's resources and opportunities are boundless. Somalia offers investors and partner governments a golden opportunity to bridge profit and social progress. Investment will also lead to long-term job creation, penetration of new markets, and a real deduction in aid support budgets. Investment can turn in aid into a trade and inject hope and a spirit of entrepreneurship in Somali's youth. Excellency, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, we have before us a historic opportunity for enhancing partnership built on our mutual accountability framework to deliver accelerated progress for our benefit. We need to work even more closely to achieve our objectives of stability and progress in Somalia. My government intends to move this country forward with our partners' steadfast support. Partnership is crucial for Somalia. It gives us means in recognizing, strengthening, and promoting Somalia's desire to assume responsibility across the spectrum of development and progress issues. I once again urge all our valuable partners to do this by aligning all support with the priorities set by the Somali government in the National Development Plan. Finally, I wish to pay tribute to the African Union and the men and women of AMISOM whose bravery and sacrifice has been essential to Somalia's progress. We are grateful for your critical role in supporting my government and the people of Somalia. I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's now my pleasure to give the floor to the Foreign Minister of Sweden, my good friend Margot Wallström, that is co-chairing with me this forum. Margot.
Thank you, Federica. Mr. President, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we have gathered here today, and I'm really proud to be on the podium together with these good people around me to reinforce our joint commitments, take stock of progress made so far, and agree on the next steps in our partnership with Somalia. There is real momentum, as we've heard, created by the hard work of Somali stakeholders and facilitated by strong support from the international community. We need to continue forward together, or is it Yalla forward together, building on progress and aligning our efforts to promote peaceful and prosperous development in Somalia. I hope that today's meeting will take us forward together along 4 major themes. First, state building and women's participation. And as the new federal map of Somalia has taken shape, Somalia has reached a point in its state and peace building process where reforms will be increasingly difficult, requiring numerous compromises and concessions. And it is my conviction that the only way to achieve sustainable peace is through truly inclusive political process. In fact, building democracy means building a system of peaceful conflict resolution. State building will only be successful when women hold political positions at all levels and participate actively in society. It is crucial for Somalia's continued development that women play an influential role on par with that of the men. To ensure that the federal member states can contribute to Somalia's peace-building process, the federal government needs to take steps to strengthen the state's capacity. And the recent violent clashes in northern Somalia highlight the urgent need to find peaceful and lasting solutions to Somalia's political challenges. Second, the need for security-related reforms, which has generated several agreements over the last year. The transition plan is instrumental in this regard. It demonstrates Somalia's commitment to working towards assuming responsibility for the country's security. And it is in the interest of all of us to ensure the successful implementation of the transition plan. A hasty and premature drawdown of AMISOM forces risks undermining the hard-won gains against Al-Shabaab. We therefore need to strike a balance between wanting to see quick progress and being mindful of the patience required to reach our long-term goal, a secure and stable Somalia at peace with itself and its neighbors. I'm particularly pleased and grateful to see distinguished representatives of the TCCs here today. Without your important efforts, the achievements of the past few years would not have been possible. Your continued contribution to AMISOM remains equally instrumental in securing Somalia's long-term stability. My third point is that Somalia is on the threshold of a new financial foundation. Continued commitment to the implementation of financial programs with the IMF and World Bank has opened prospects for concessional financing and a pathway to debt relief. To continue on this positive track, international support should be geared towards the implementation of these crucial reforms. And fourth and finally, I would like to stress this need for all of us to align our efforts. I urge all of Somalia's neighbors on both sides of the Red Sea to work together to ensure regional cooperation for the good of Somalia and the wider Horn of Africa. The recent positive developments in the region, in particular the rapprochement between Ethiopia and Eritrea, renew our belief in a peaceful and prosperous Horn of Africa. As for Sweden, our commitment to Somalia is long-term and solid. Swedish-Somali ties go back decades and they run deep. The Somali diaspora in Sweden represents no less than 1% of our population of today, participates in all parts of society and includes by now parliamentarians, musicians and entrepreneurs. The diaspora is not only a vibrant part of our society but also of our bilateral relations. Just the other week, the Swedish government, as I've already said today, decided to double our development aid to Somalia to approximately $350 million over the next 5 years. The primary target areas of the new strategy include some of those we are addressing here, namely sustainable peace, resilience and gender equality. And one concrete example of our capacity building efforts is Sweden's 5 national agencies working in Somalia. This doubling of our financial support together with our current work is testimony to Sweden's long-term commitment to enhancing our partnership based on mutual respect and a belief in Somalia's potential. I want to close by thanking you all for coming to this important event. Your participation is a clear expression of your support to Somalia's development, and I encourage all of us to remain engaged in keeping the positive developments on track. Forward together. Thank you.
Thank you, Margot, also for all the work we're doing together in preparing this important meeting today. And let me now pass the floor to the African Union Peace and Security Commissioner, my good friend SHIRKA. Please, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, my dear friend Federica Mogherini, High Representative and Vice President of the European Commission, His Excellency Mohammed Abdullahi Mohammed, President of the Federal Republic of Somalia, Her Excellency Mrs. Margot Wallström, Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Kingdom of Sweden, Her Excellency Rosemarie Di Carlo, UN Under Secretary General for Political Affairs, distinguished ministers, ladies and gentlemen, we meet here today at this partnership forum in a period when Somalia is on the cusp of taking ownership of its own future. This is a clear indication that our collective investment in Somalia are yielding results. As we look to engage over the next day and a half, the African Union looks forward to deliberations that will contribute to a brighter and more prosperous future for all Somalis. I would like to seek this opportunity to highlight some of the significant progress we at the African Union and AMISOM have made since the last forum in early December 2017. First, let me remind us that at the last partnership forum, both the African Union and AMISOM committed themselves to a set of key milestones. This includes the reduction of the number of AMISOM troops by 1,000 in favor of police as required under Security Council Resolution 2372, and to gradually transfer security responsibilities to Somali security forces. The above commitments, in addition to the three priorities agreed at the Mogadishu Security Conference, set the basis for an action plan. A key component of this was the necessity of developing a transitional plan jointly by the federal government of Somalia, federal member states, AMISOM, and with the support of the international partners. Likewise, linked to developing a transitional plan has been the need to explore funding arrangement not only for AMISOM but also for the Somali security forces. Excellencies, I want to highlight the significant progress that African Union and AMISOM have made leading up to this forum. These include AMISOM drawing down by 1,000 in December 2017 in favor of police personnel. B, the development of transitional plan in partnership with the federal government and federal member states. C, the endorsement of the transitional plan by the African Peace and Security Council on the 30th April 2018. D, co-authorizing the African Union UN Invoice report on AMISOM financing. E, the endorsement of the African Union UN Joint Review on AMISOM reportedly to the African Union Peace and Security Council meeting in Nouakchott, Mauritania on 27 of June 2018. These and other developments highlight the commitment of the African Union and AMISOM towards contributing to the federal government's interconnected reform agenda on security, inclusive politics and the economy. Excellencies, with the African Union and AMISOM continued support, Somalia has made considerable progress to securing peace and stability. However, Somalia still faces many challenges, such as pace of national reconciliation and the finalization of the constitutional review, fundamental processes towards building consensus among Somali stakeholders on the nature of the federal Somalia. Similarly, the African Union wishes to see considerable progress towards the completion of the implementation of the national security architecture, as called for during the recent concluded National Security Council summit in Baidoa. The continued tensions between center and periphery, particularly around the resources sharing and over the right to engage in foreign affairs, require quick resolutions. the risk of reversing the gains made by Somali's partners' collective efforts in this regard increase with delays in reaching an agreement. Permit me at this point to applaud the efforts of President Mohamed Abdullahi Farmajo in his attempts to lead the rebuilding of a viable security sector in Somalia. The President's efforts are rightly being echoed on the National Security Architecture Agreement between the federal government and the federal member states, and currently the transitional plan. As this forum is aware, the transitional plan is geared to Somalia's long-term stability, setting out priority tasks and conditions that will support the transfer of security responsibilities from AMISOM to the Somali security sector over a 4-year period. The African Union is proud of the tangible progress made by both the federal government and AMISOM. However, considerable effort and sacrifices are still required to achieve a realistic and viable transition. Currently, the implementation of the transitional plan is in its initial stage. AMISOM and federal government are playing vital roles in developing detailed operational plan that focuses on 3 pilot priorities identified by the federal government and based on the framework of the comprehensive approach to security. In this context, I am pleased to report that the transitioning of Mogadishu Stadium is on schedule for a successful handover this November. In attempting to achieve this self-imposed deadline, AMISOM uniformed personnel gallantly agreed to transit to Jazeera 2, where the living conditions are far below the standards expected for an international peacekeeper. AMISOM will remain in Jazeera 2 until ENSOS completes the habitation upgrade. Elsewhere, AMISOM is in close collaboration with the federal government, are actively planning for the recovery of Lego and clearing the Baidoa-Mogadishu main supply routes. While operational details are completed, challenges remain in terms of force generation, equipment for SNA, and integration of the regional forces. Excellencies, allow me to further remind this forum that in December 2017, it was also agreed that the 2 other priorities for immediate action were the implementation of the national security architecture and the continued international support to building the capacity of Somali security forces and institutions emerging from progress on the development of the transitional plan and the implementation of the national security architecture. In echoing the Peace and Security Council, I wish to call for accelerated efforts by the UN, the larger international community, and the TTC, PCCs to urgently support the federal government in building the capacity for its security forces and institutions. At the African Union, we have called for an expanded training and mentoring role for AMISOM military and police component. This will rapidly generate the required security forces to implement the transitional plan. In order to achieve this training, the implementation of national security architecture requires the immediate priorities, including implementation of the ORA recommendation and strengthening of the federal security model. B. Federal government and federal member states implementation of the integration of regional forces into SNA and SPF. C. Development of SNA that is capable of implementing the transitional plan through retraining existing SNA troops to undertake joint operation with AMISOM. D. Sustainability for integrated forces through regular payment of salaries and provision of barracks. E. Federal government to provide funding to operationalize the Regional Security Council and security offices. The African Union remains encouraged by the federal government's leadership plan to retire those SNA troops that have reached retirement age. Regarding the funding of AMISOM, the African Union notes that AMISOM's continued presence and its role within the transition will necessitate the securing of predictable and sustainable funding, both for AMISOM and the Somali security institutions. Consequently, the African Union looks forward to the outcome of the next step following the UN Security Council consideration of Envoy's report on AMISOM financing. As noted by the envoys in their reports and highlighted again in the recent joint review, AMISOM must undergo a transformation. AMISOM's transformation will compel it to reorganizing and reconfiguring itself to meet the demands of the ongoing transition. However, taking into consideration the challenges faced by the Somali security forces, AMISOM is likely to encounter difficulties with a further drawdown, resulting in a potential reversal of gains. In this regard, the African Union Peace and Security Council has welcomed the recommendation of joint review to delay the 1,000 troop reduction due in October to February 2019, pending an assessment of AMISOM capabilities. This assessment is also expected to demonstrate the urgent need to reconfigure AMISOM's civil component to both meet the new demands of AMISOM uniformed personnel and the transition. Already AMISOM is in the final planning phase of deploying its advanced team of civilians comprising stabilization and political officers to federal member states to begin substantive work. In conclusion, the African Union wishes to underline its full commitment to strengthening its partnership with the federal government through the existing Somalia African Union Joint Task Force, with the aim of supporting Somalia in its pursuit of peace and stability. We want also to thank the European Union and all our partners in this common endeavor. I want to thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you, and let me now turn the floor to Rosemary DiCarlo, UN Under-Secretary General for Political Affairs.
Thank you, High Representative. Mr. President, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it's my great pleasure to be with you today. We meet as Somalia opens a new chapter in its history, one that has the potential to fundamentally transform the country. The transition plan we have been discussing represents significant progress in affirming Somali ownership of security. We commend the federal government of Somalia and federal member states for the strong political will they have demonstrated. The priorities they have set must now guide our activities and be the anchor of our common engagement in the country. Mutual accountability should drive the implementation of the transition plan, but implementation will not be possible without adequate resources and commensurate political will. Many partners have made significant contributions to the stabilization process. It is critical that we now align our existing and future support to the priorities outlined in the plan and channel required funding through Somalia's national systems. The United Nations is fully committed to Somalia's future and will support implementation of the plan through its UN missions in Somalia and relevant UN agencies. Excellencies, let me pay tribute to the ultimate sacrifice that AMISOM has made. Its presence remains critical while Somalia builds its security capacity. We look to the African Union and AMISOM troop contributing countries to begin the reconfiguration called for in the plan. And we look to the European Union to maintain its investment in AMISOM. The United Nations is ready to work with the African Union and other partners to broaden the base of financial contributions to the force. Excellencies, progress in Somalia will only be sustained by political agreement that forms the basis of the federal state. We commend the leaders of both the federal government and federal member states for recent agreements that chart a path to universal suffrage elections. Over the next 6 months, there will be a need to advance the constitutional review. In particular, agreement on the allocation of power and resource sharing is necessary. Genuine inclusivity of federal member states, parliamentarians, clan power brokers, the private sector, and civil society is essential, as is the meaningful participation of women. The United Nations is ready to step up its good offices, advice, and assistance in support of this political roadmap. Political progress will also be the basis for further economic reforms. We commend the federal government for its significant efforts to put the country on a sounder economic and financial footing. These reforms will promote economic development and reduce Somalia's reliance on external aid. We also welcome the government's approach to tackling resilience and recovery, and we call on all partners to engage with the Resilience and Recovery Framework and support investments that link humanitarian and development work and promote long-term growth. These reforms will ultimately strengthen Somalia's resistance against internal and external pressures. We encourage all to work in a constructive spirit to support the federal system and respect Somalia's unity. We should prevent internal and external conflicts from undermining progress in Somalia. Excellencies, we have been working to provide a future of peace and prosperity in a sovereign Somalia. It is time to invest in progress to make it irreversible in order to achieve our common goal of a lasting peace in that country. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me really warmly welcome and thank, first of all, the President of the Federal Republic of Somalia, the African Union Commission, the United Nations, my partner in co-hosting and co-chairing this forum, Sweden, for this opening session of our partnership forum. I would like now to invite, before we proceed with the first session of our works, the heads of delegation to follow us for a family photo, and then we'll immediately come back to this room to proceed with the summary on the outcomes of the priorities by the Deputy Prime Minister, and then with the interventions from the different delegations. Thank you.
So can we please ask everybody to come back to the table? Please take your seats. Dear colleagues, welcome back to the table. You have no idea how tough a Swedish chairperson can be. It starts already now. We are, as you can see, running a bit late. I know that some colleagues will have to leave also, but we will try to manage this in a dignified way. And we will continue with the next point on the agenda, which is a presentation of the summary of the main outcomes and priorities from the senior officials meeting. Shh! Thank you. And we will ask the Deputy Prime Minister from the Federal Government of Somalia, His Excellency Mahdi Mohamed Guleid, to make the presentation. The floor is yours. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Excellencies, the President of the Federal Government of Somalia, High Representative, Vice President Federica Mogherini, Foreign Minister Margot Wallström, African Union Commissioner Ismail Chargai, and the Secretary General Rosemary DiCarlo, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it's an honor to summarize the outcomes of our fruitful discussions yesterday for you. On inclusive politics, the participants reviewed and acknowledged the progress made, including in the recent National Security Council meeting in Baidoa, where agreements on the electoral model and revenue sharing were reached, as well as progress in the constitutional review process. Participants heard the views of President Gas of Puntland and half of Galmudug, who presented their respective reflections on progress on inclusive politics. The Minister of Interior and Minister of Constitution briefed the conference on the work of their respective ministries in moving the inclusive politics agenda forward. We also heard from the Minister of Human Rights and Gender and the chairperson of the Independent Electoral Commission. In the debate that followed, many delegations spoke of cautious optimism and opportunities. The link between commitment and mutual accountability was reinforced. The EU Special Representative Alex Rondos summed it up when he spoke of the need to move from design to delivery. To this end, the government committed to finalize the necessary legislation for the implementation of the electoral model. The government and regional states reiterated their intention to hold elections within the constitutionally mandated term limits. Extension is not an option. The government also committed to finalize the constitutional review process by the end of this year. Many speakers highlighted the need for inclusivity through greater participation of women, youth, and marginalized groups in political life of the country. Also, the need to end mistrust was mentioned. On security, turning into security, all the participants paid tribute to AMISOM's presence in Somalia, which has provided the security to enable progress to date. They reaffirmed that AMISOM's continued partnership and active participation would be essential to Somalia's next chapter of the state building, and recalled that sustainable funding and additional contribution to AMISOM in a spirit of burden sharing is essential. The National Security Advisor briefed us on the operationalization of the transition plan, and the Minister of Defense updated us on the institutional capacity building progress in the Ministry of Defense as a key part of the national security architecture. President Abdiweli of Puntland emphasized the need for frank conversations between Somali partners and the importance of mutual accountability between Somalia and the international partners. President Sharif Hassan of Southwest State spoke of the need to restore freedom of movement across the country and emphasized the role of regional forces in the fight against Al-Shabaab. We were grateful for the strong support expressed by our partners for the development and implementation of the transition plan to enable Somalia to assume ultimate responsibility for security. We agreed that the plan will be the basis for aligning security sector reform going forward, and that the plan is about the building of capable Somali institutions in order to build trust and bring stability to the population of Somalia. We also spoke about economic recovery and resilience, but I want to conclude with one word. In conclusion, yesterday's fruitful discussions highlighted the very importance of partnership for Somalia's progress. I personally saw, heard and felt genuine commitment and passion from both the Somali government and our federal member states leaders and international partners. We must recommit to the mutual partnership framework and quickly deliver on the commitments we have agreed and that are reflected in the communique. We truly challenge ourselves to achieve even more before our next 6-month meeting. A famous Somali proverb is, one finger cannot wash a whole face. Hal fari fool ma dhaqdo, ama fari fool ma dhaqdo. I am glad we have many hands along our side. Thank you very much. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Deputy Prime Minister. That's what I call a summary. I think we should thank both you and, of course, all those in the senior officials meeting for their work. And can you please ensure that we get in writing the summary from this meeting? Because I think we all have to study that very carefully and see what can we use when we come home to make sure that this is also turned into deeds.
We will post it online. Yeah.
Thank you very much. That's excellent. So thank you, and that allows us to move immediately to the next point on the agenda. And you see that we have come to the key interventions from delegations, and I will start to moderate this the first speakers. And actually, Didier Reinders had to leave us, but Mrs. Louise Mushikiwabo, who is the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Rwanda, will be the first speaker. The floor is yours.
Merci beaucoup. Merci, chers collègues, chers amis, Margot. Madame la haute représentante, chère Margot, encore une fois, Monsieur le commissaire paix et sécurité de l'Union africaine, Madame la sous-secrétaire générale des Nations unies aux affaires politiques, chers collègues, chers amis, je serai très brève. Le Rwanda se réjouit de ce forum, cette réunion autour de nos frères et sœurs somaliens à un moment important de l'histoire de leur pays. Nous sommes ici pour prendre plus de responsabilités. Le président du gouvernement fédéral en a parlé tout à l'heure, collectivement, face à la détermination du gouvernement fédéral somalien et des autorités somaliennes, après le succès du forum organisé en décembre 2017 à Mogadiscio. Les progrès sur le plan politique, y compris l'accord politique entre les acteurs importants du pays, ainsi que la vigilance croissante sur le plan sécuritaire, sont une base solide et un levier important pour la mise en œuvre du plan de transition et de l'architecture de sécurité nationale. Je parle au nom du Rwanda, mon pays, et au nom de l'Union africaine que mon pays préside cette année, moi-même présidente du Conseil exécutif de l'Union africaine cette année, pour dire que la Somalie est un tournant positif de son histoire et nous sommes et nous serons toujours à vos côtés. Je voudrais saluer le travail et le sacrifice de la MISOM et des forces de sécurité somaliennes ainsi que l'Union africaine qui veille constamment pour que la Somalie reste une priorité pour notre continent. Je remercie sincèrement les co-organisateurs de ce forum, très important, très réussi, et je termine par réitérer la disponibilité de mon pays à collaborer avec les autorités somaliennes telles que discutées dernièrement, aussi bien dans les processus de reconstruction que dans les échanges de bonnes pratiques, et je vous remercie.
Merci beaucoup, chers collègues. Thank you very much for your intervention. And thank you for also being very short and concise. I will ask also the rest of you to be, if you like, I can remind you when 3 minutes have passed. I can just make a short noise. Otherwise, I trust that you will be to the point for us to allow everybody to speak. And if you would like to be a bit more effective, you can skip the greetings to all of us. I know that you are very polite, all of you, and that you feel that this is the protocol. But if you want to be sure that you can, and we will accept that. We know that we are friends and that you are very respectful. My title alone is 1 minute. Yes, her title is 1 minute only. So that's one way of doing it. But we want to listen to all of you who want to speak. So that's why we are a bit tough now. Now I'm happy to give the EU Commissioner for Humanitarian Aid and Crisis Management, Mr. Christos Stylianides, the floor. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Honorable guests, it's an honor to be here with you, and it is a pleasure to note how much has been achieved during these days for the future of Somalia and its people. As High Representative already emphasized, the European Union has proudly stood by Somalia in difficult moments. We stood by you to avert a famine last year. You know, this success is a result of massive humanitarian efforts that started early and were sustained over time. However, the needs of the most vulnerable are still huge. Today, 5.4 million people are still not being able to fulfill their basic needs. And so, in addition to what Federica already announced, last week, as Commissioner for Humanitarian Aid, I announced a new package of 89 million euros in humanitarian assistance in Somalia in this year, humanitarian field alone. This comes in addition to the 120 million euros invested in last year, 2017. So our aim remains the same, to help people with respect to their dignity, and this is why, where possible, we opt for cash assistance instead of in-kind assistance. Let us make no mistake, we all know very well that humanitarian aid cannot solve political and security problems. What is needed is to deal with the root causes, and this is why I welcome the federal government's commitment to address the root causes of humanitarian needs through the Resilience and Recovery Framework. It gives us hope that we will be able to move more, for instance, from the current humanitarian cash transfer system towards a more predictable social safety net system, always in close cooperation with the government. Drought will inevitably occur again in Somalia. We need to be prepared for the future. Last but not least, we should not lose the big picture. Our efforts should aim to create a better future for Somalia and its people in the long run. Cash, shelter, protection and health are essential, but not enough. We need to give these people hope and prospect for their future. And this is why we are investing in the education of Somali children. We in the European Union have increased our humanitarian budget for education by 8 times in the last 3 years. So 8% of our humanitarian aid budget goes to education in emergencies this year. Next year, we aim to reach 10%. Somalia is rightful so among the countries who benefit from this increased support. Thank you so much for your attention.
We always have time for applause. That's a good thing. Thank you very much, Commissioner. And I now am happy to welcome and give the floor to the Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation of Djibouti, Mr. Mahmoud Ali Yusuf.
Excellences, Monsieur le Président Mohamed Abdullahi Mohamed Farmajo, Président de la République fédérale de Somalie, Excellences, Mesdames et Messieurs, la Somalie se situe à un tournant dans son long processus de stabilisation. Au cours de cette étape cruciale et semée d'embûches, de défis sécuritaires, socio-économiques et humanitaires, des perspectives réelles de stabilité se profilent grâce à l'aide des pays de la région, de la Corne de l'Afrique, de l'Union africaine, de l'Union européenne, des Nations unies et d'autres partenaires. Le gouvernement fédéral somalien n'est pas en reste et fait œuvre utile. En effet, l'architecture nationale de sécurité et le plan global de transition accompagné d'une transformation de la MISOM et la montée en puissance des forces somaliennes de défense et de sécurité permettront d'asseoir, sans nul doute, un environnement sécurisé durable en Somalie. Par ailleurs, les réformes politiques en cours, avec l'implication active des régions, le partage des ressources et la finalisation de la rédaction de la Constitution, culmineront, on l'espère, sur la tenue en 2020 d'élections au suffrage universel. En outre, il est indéniable que les réformes économiques prioritaires engagées sous la houlette du FMI renforceront la crédibilité des actions du gouvernement fédéral somalien. Toute cette dynamique est de bon augure pour l'avenir de la Somalie. Djibouti poursuivra ses efforts en faveur de la Somalie sur le plan sécuritaire, à travers ses contingents sous la bannière de la MISOM. Je tiens à rappeler également que mon pays apporte un soutien accru à la formation des forces de police somaliennes au renforcement de leurs capacités. Sur le plan humanitaire, Djibouti n'a pas hésité à dépêcher plus de 30 médecins et des dizaines de paramédicaux lors des attentats meurtriers qui ont frappé Mogadiscio au cours des derniers mois. De même, lors du passage du cyclone Sagar sur le Somaliland et le Puntland, mon pays a offert une aide d'urgence alimentaire pour soulager les populations affectées. Mesdames et messieurs, ce forum de partenariat en Somalie vient à point nommé, faisant suite à des réunions internationales déterminantes tenues l'année dernière et au cours du mois de mars, avril, mai de l'année en cours. Au nom de la délégation de Djibouti, je tiens à féliciter et remercier tous les partenaires de la Somalie qui continuent sans relâche à soutenir les efforts du gouvernement fédéral somalien et ceux des pays de la région. J'aimerais souligner à ce stade 2 points de mon intervention qui me semblent importants. Le premier élément est que la Somalie doit être préservée des ingérences extérieures qui perturbent sa cohésion interne et son unité fédérale. Le deuxième élément concerne la stratégie à adopter et à mettre en œuvre pour une montée progressive et en puissance des forces de sécurité somaliennes, en mettant un accent particulier sur le déploiement de la police somalienne dans les villes et les zones urbaines. La sécurisation des grands axes entre les villes serait de la responsabilité des forces de défense somaliennes et de la MISOM. Ce forum de partenariat avec la Somalie devrait nous permettre d'avancer des propositions réalistes en vue de l'atteinte de ces objectifs. Djibouti ne perdra aucun effort pour venir en appui à cette dynamique collective sur le plan régional et international, en formulant le vœu de voir tous les pays de la Corne de l'Afrique se retrouver dans une communion de paix et de stabilité, à l'instar de ce qui se passe en ce moment entre l'Éthiopie et l'Érythrée. Je vous remercie.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Ministre. Thank you very much for that. And now I immediately give the floor to Mr. Ahmed D. Hussein, Minister of Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship in Canada, was
yes,
supposed to say.
So trusting Minister Wallstrom's guarantee that not mentioning the names of the hosts is not acknowledging that we don't thank them, I'll move to honor to say that I'm honored to join all of you to discuss progress against the commitments that we collectively made in London, UK last year, and have been implementing over the course of last year. We congratulate the federal government of Somalia on the significant progress you have made and achieved on your reform agenda for security, economy, and politics. Canada has a strong interest in Somalia, and as we share very, very important people-to-people ties, resulting in rich and cultural and historical linkages between our two countries. Unknown to a lot of people, Canada has a very large and dynamic 250,000 strong diaspora community. Many arrived in the 1990s as a result of the crisis in the north, in the Horn. But today many Somali Canadians are now represented in all walks of Canadian life, in academia, in business, the arts, politics, sports, and various professions. They, in many ways, an example of the successful Canadian integration program. With Somalia's historic electoral process not a long time ago, the hard work of state building continues. The ongoing constitutional review process and the development of very important institutional structures and systems for resource and revenue sharing are absolutely foundational for addressing regional grievances and ensuring that all Somalis benefit from the country's development. Canada has also faced these challenges. We faced these challenges 151 years ago when Canada came together to form a confederation. And we had to unite people across provinces and long distances. Our government continues to engage citizens even today to resolve issues around the promotion of federal harmony. Building a federal system in Somalia is a key opportunity to bring together the crucial political, security and economic developmental elements necessary for Somalia's recovery and long-term development. And I want to say very clearly that Canada is always ready to share its experience on federalism with Somalia, because I think the federalism that you have adopted closely resembles the Canadian model. The promotion of inclusive and accountable government, peaceful pluralism, respect for diversity and human rights are key to successful and sustainable democratic societies. Canada recognizes the importance of investing in the human potential of all Somalis, especially women and young girls, and we have reoriented our whole foreign and international development policy to protect and advance the rights of women and girls and fragile states. So those two go together. In order for Somalia to reach its full potential, it must ensure that all its citizens are both contributing to and benefiting from development. Women must be allowed and encouraged to participate in all aspects of private, economic, public and political life. We must also keep in mind the importance of engaging the youth and recognizing that youth are not just the leaders of tomorrow, they are in fact the leaders of today. The majority of Somalia's population is under the age of 30, and so youth stands to make a key difference in driving the country's development and prosperity agenda. On security, I commend the Somali National Army, regional forces, the African Union, and participating African nations in AMISOM for the considerable achievements that have been made so far. Recognizing the disproportionate effects that conflicts have on children and young girls and women, Canada was proud to launch the Vancouver Principles on Peacekeeping and the Prevention of Recruitment and Use of Child Soldiers last year in Canada. And we are now working with UNICEF and the Romeo Dallaire Child Soldiers Initiative to strengthen African peacekeeping capacity on child rights and the protection of children, including with AMISOM. On resilience and human assistance, I'm proud of the fact that Canada stepped forward when Somalia called. Collectively, we need to ensure that we maintain support for Somalia in its difficult needs. But towards this end, Canada has already provided $25 million so far this year in humanitarian assistance. But if we are able to have a sustained impact on Somalia's progress, we must equally increase our focus on resilience building and longer-term economic development. And that is why more sustained economic development is something that Canada has recognized. And Canada is the second largest donor to the IMF's Somalia Trust Fund. We applaud the federal government of Somalia in its efforts to implement the fiscal and monetary policy reforms needed to be eligible for the highly indebted poor countries initiative. Once this is achieved, it has the potential to be a game changer for Somalia. So in closing, let me reiterate my pleasure in participating here with you. I'm pleased to see the progress that has been made. But let me be absolutely clear. A peaceful, stable and prosperous Somalia is in Canada's interest. Canada will continue to be your committed partner, and Canada is fully committed to Somalia's future. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much, Minister. You got some extra time because you've traveled from so far, so I think Canada can have a little extra. So now we move on the speakers list. So I now give the floor to the Minister of State for the Diaspora and International Development from Ireland, Ms. Kieran Cannon.
Thank you, Minister.
Mr.
Kieran. Ireland stands with the international community in our unwavering support for the people of Somalia and join in the collective commitment expressed here today to the federal government of Somalia as it continues its peace-building and state-building efforts in the country. I also commend efforts to deepen the federalisation process, to reform the electoral system and ensure sustainable and inclusive development across the country to accelerate economic growth. This forum provides an important opportunity to take stock of the tremendous achievements of recent years, and we commend the federal government and the federal member states for their leadership and for their commitment. Although we have seen significant progress, the terrorist attacks on civilians in recent weeks demonstrate the ongoing fragility of the situation and the reversibility of hard-fought gains. Ireland will continue to stand with the EU and our international partners in solidarity with Somalia as we redouble our efforts to secure a peaceful and a stable future for the country. Ireland also wishes to emphasise the important role of AMISOM in terms of providing a security vacuum and for allowing the political process to continue. In this regard, we stress the importance of sustainable and predictable funding for AMISOM in the years ahead, and I am proud of the significant financial support provided by the EU since 2007, and I encourage the other donors to step up together with the EU to provide that financial support to AMISOM. It's essential to build the capacity of the Somali security forces to gradually take over security responsibility for its people, and to achieve this there must be sufficient progress in implementing the transition plan. This needs to be combined with support for the softer elements of the transition, including the new federal policing model, enhancing the rule of law, supporting reconciliation and local conflict resolution. And in this regard, I would like to stress the vital role played by women in grassroots mediation and peace building. We must not lose sight of the humanitarian crisis in Somalia. It was through the coordinated and ramped up efforts of the federal government and international donors that the famine was averted last year, and we cannot be complacent given the ongoing seriousness of that situation. Ireland has been a consistent supporter of the humanitarian response in the country year on year, providing some €40 million in humanitarian assistance since 2012. Our support is provided to our NGO partners on the ground and through the UN-managed Somalia Humanitarian Fund and its local level decision-making and responses. We must continue to work to strengthen resilience in Somalia, and we commend the development by the federal government of Somalia of the Resilience and Recovery Framework, which will help focus efforts on moving beyond the cycle of shock and response and address the root causes of acute needs in that country. In addressing these root causes, we cannot ignore the transformative power of education, and I am pleased to hear the Commissioner Stylianides remains determined to continue increasing support for education in the humanitarian setting. Somalia stands at a crossroads, and with our collective ongoing support and cooperation, we can help to consolidate the political, security and economic gains of last year and help the country stay on the right path. Allow me again to restate Ireland's firm solidarity with the federal government of Somalia and our deep commitment to supporting all efforts in building a safe and prosperous future for all Somali citizens. Thank you.
Thank you very much. From Qatar, the Minister of State for Foreign Affairs is here among us. So, Mr. Sultan Saad Al Muraiki, please, the floor is yours.
Okay. It's going to be in Arabic. شكرا سعادة الوزيرة. السيدات والسادة، أود في البداية أن أتوجه بالشكر للاتحاد الأوروبي ومملكة السويد على استضافة وتنظيم هذا المنتدى بالتنسيق مع الأمم المتحدة والاتحاد الإفريقي. إن المشاركة الواسعة من المجتمع الدولي في هذا المنتدى تؤكد الإرادة الدولية المشتركة لإيجاد حلول جذرية للأزمة الصومالية حتى يتمكن الصومال الشقيق من الحفاظ على سيادته وتحقيق المصالح الوطنية وإحلال الأمن على أرضه وبناء مؤسساته وتوفير العيش الكريم لأشقائنا الصوماليين. ولن يكون هذا ممكنا دون تضافر جهود المجتمع الدولي. وللبناء على الزخم الذي تحقق لا بد من أن نستمر في تقديم المبادرات لدعم الصومال والوفاء بالتعهدات واحترام سيادة الصومال وعدم التدخل في شؤونه الداخلية من أي طرف كان، وفقا للقانون الدولي ووفقا للإعلانات السياسية الصادرة في هذا الشأن، وتقديم الدعم الكامل في مجال مكافحة الإرهاب الذي ندينه مهما كانت ذرائعه، وتوثيق التعاون بين الحكومة الفيدرالية وكافة ولاياته دون تهميش لأحد. كما سيكون من المهم زيادة الدعم المقدم للبعثة الأفريقية لحفظ السلام، وخاصة من قبل الأمم المتحدة أعمالا بالفصل 8 من الميثاق. إن التحديات التي يواجهها الصومال لا تقتصر على الجوانب الأمنية والاقتصادية والاجتماعية والمؤسساتية والسلم الداخلي فحسب، بل تشمل الكوارث الطبيعية ومن أهمها موجات الجفاف الشديدة التي تجتاح البلاد باستمرار، ولولا تكاتف الجهود الدولية وتفاني الجمعيات الخيرية والمدنية لكانت الخسائر البشرية مأساوية. في هذا الصدد أؤكد على مواصلة دولة قطر في بذل جهودها الإغاثية وتقديم المساعدات التنموية للصومال الشقيق وغيره من البلدان المنكوبة، متحملة بذلك مسؤوليتها كعضو فاعل ومسؤول في المجتمع الدولي، ومؤمنة بأن السلام والأمن والتنمية وحقوق الإنسان هي عوامل مترابطة ومكملة لبعضها البعض، والطريق الأوحد لتجنب التطرف والعنف والإرهاب، وإن تلبية الاحتياجات الإنسانية والتنموية والإصلاحات والعدالة الاجتماعية وحقوق الإنسان يجب أن تسود وفقا لمقاصد وأهداف الأمم المتحدة. السيدات والسادة، لا شك أنه منذ الانتخابات الأخيرة 2016-2017 وانتخاب حكومة الجديدة بقيادة فخامة الرئيس فرماجو قطع الصومال خطوات فعلية وتقدما ملموسا وإصلاحات على جميع الأصعدة، وتؤكد دولة قطر دعمها لجهود الحكومة وتعاون الولايات، ونحث الجميع على المثابرة في هذه الجهود لما فيه مصلحة الشعب الصومالي. إن ثقة المجتمع الدولي في مستقبل واعد للصومال تتأكد من خلال حجم المساعدات التي تم استعراضها خلال هذا المنتدى من الاتحاد الأوروبي والبنك الدولي والبلدان الصديقة، وهذه هي المرة الأولى التي يقوم فيها المانحون بتخصيص هذا الدعم الهام، ونعتز بأن تكون دولة قطر ضمن أهم هؤلاء المانحين. إن دولة قطر على اتصال وثيق ودائم مع الحكومة الصومالية والبعثة الأممية في مقديشو، كما نعتز بشراكاتنا مع الاتحاد الأوروبي والبنك الدولي والاتحاد الأفريقي بمختلف مؤسساته، بالإضافة إلى البلدان المجاورة والصديقة، وتوحيد الجهود بما يخدم أهدافنا السامية. وأشير هنا إلى أن دعم دولة قطر للصومال للفترة من 2010 إلى 2017 من القطاعين الحكومي وغير الحكومي تجاوز 200 مليون دولار أمريكي. وكما أعلنت دولة قطر في نوفمبر 2017 عن حزمة دعم بمبلغ 200 مليون دولار إضافية لدعم مشاريع الصحة والتعليم والتمكين الاقتصادي، وكذلك البنية التحتية كمشاريع الطرق التي تربط المدن وتدعم الاقتصاد بربط مناطق الإنتاج بالأسواق والموانئ، وذلك لتشجيع المجتمع الدولي على تقديم مشاريع تنموية مماثلة لتنمية الاقتصاد والتبادل التجاري. ويتم تنفيذ هذه المشاريع بالتنسيق المباشر مع الحكومة الصومالية. كما أطلقت حكومة دولة قطر ممثلة بوزارة الخارجية وهي تنظيم الأعمال الخيرية حملة تبرعات أهلية في أوائل شهر يونيو 2018 خلال شهر رمضان الكريم، وذلك لنجدة الشعب الصومالي الشقيق، علما بأن كافة أشكال الدعم تتم عبر القنوات الرسمية بين البلدين وبالشراكة مع وكالات الأمم المتحدة وهيئات الإغاثة العالمية والحكومة الصومالية، وانطلاقا من مبدأ التكامل ودعم وجهود الحكومة لبسط الأمن والسلم ودفع عجلة التنمية في البلاد، فسيكون من المهم التركيز في المرحلة المقبلة على دعم الولايات الفيدرالية لتطوير البنية التحتية المحلية مثل الطرق والأسواق والمباني الإدارية والطاقة الشمسية، وذلك بالشراكة مع الأمم المتحدة والبنك الدولي وبالتنسيق مع الحكومة الفيدرالية. أشكر لكم حسن الاستماع، والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Shukran, Mr. Minister, thank you very much. I immediately leave the floor to Under Secretary of State for Foreign Affairs from Italy, Ms. Emanuela Del Rey. Yes. There. Okay.
Hello, thank you very much. After years of instability, Somalia is moving towards a positive change. We all agree on that. It is a form of dynamism that we should continue to support as much work lies ahead in the country's institution building process. I would like to stress out the positive outcomes of the last months, with specific regard to the outcomes of the last National Security Council and the political roadmap. The 2020 one-person, one-vote elections are an ambitious goal, one we should continue to support in full respect of the Somali ownership. We strongly support the efforts of the government and the federal member states to continue their efforts to develop a balanced constitutional reform with shared commitments and responsibilities in order to proceed quickly to the reconstruction of the country, enhancing social and economic developments, in particular as regards women and children. As regards security, as you know, Italy is strongly committed to promote peace, stability and development in Somalia, both at bilateral level and within the EU framework, through the participation to the different common security and defence policy missions. It is thus my belief that in the security field, the role of AMISOM, together with the EU support, remains crucial in assuring the handover of responsibility to the Somali forces, as the threat passed by Al-Shabaab remains serious and the Somali security forces need to build up in an effective manner. We should support a gradual, condition-based but time-frame transition of responsibilities from AMISOM to the Somali security forces in order to avoid any vacuum in the security field that would undermine all our efforts. However, as other emerging actors are stepping up their engagement towards Somalia, I am also convinced that our meeting can be an opportunity to call on all partners of Somalia in Africa, in particular the troop-contributing countries of AMISOM, the wider region of the Middle East and beyond, to support the federal government of Somalia in a comprehensive and coordinated manner in its efforts to support the country. We commend Somalia in terms of economic development for the fruitful re-engagement with the international financial institutions that remain pivotal in view of the country's stabilization and reconstruction. Italy has strongly encouraged Somalia to pursue normalization in its relations with the FIS, also contributing to the multi-donor funds run by the IMF, the World Bank and the African Development Bank to support the federal government in building key economic institutions as well as boosting the real economy through infrastructure reconstruction. In this regard, we welcome the recent approval by the IMF of a third staff-monitored program agreed with the federal government that will be focused on reform implementation, particularly in public financial management, revenue administration and policy, monetary and financial sector. Italy stands firm to support Somalia in advancing the macroeconomic reform agenda agreed with the IMF, the World Bank and other main donors that could eventually lead to a relief under the heavily in-debt poor countries initiative. To this end, we are committed to favour Somalia's accession to the, as I said, heavily in-debt poor countries initiative, which is conditional on several requirements, including the clearance on the multilateral arrears, the positive implementations of economic reform under the IMF programme of upper credit tranche quality, and the development of a poverty reduction strategy. The whole process requires crucial efforts from both donors and Somalia that Italy is eager to encourage. I can also assure that as soon as the heavily in-debt poor countries conditions are fulfilled by Somalia, Italy will grant relief for 100% of bilateral sovereign debt. Regarding resilience and humanitarian assistance, despite the overall efforts of the international community, the humanitarian situation is still worrisome. The number of IDPs, refugees and migrants continues to increase, while drought represents a pending threat. We have recently enhanced our humanitarian support to Somalia, scaling up Italy's contribution from €3.5 million in 2016 to €6.5 million in 2017. So far, we have funded humanitarian projects, implemented the UN agencies, UNHCR, World Food Programme, as well as by the OIM and the International Red Cross. For the first time, after many years, we also decided to fund humanitarian activities carried out by Italian and Somali NGOs. Their activities are currently being implemented and aim at strengthening the resilience of the most vulnerable categories of the rural population severely affected by the drought. Furthermore, we will continue to support those sectors, nutrition, wash, health and agriculture, which can alleviate the suffering of the most vulnerable categories of the civilian population. We also intend to continue our activities in the field of assistance to the victims of landmines and unexploded devices, where cooperation with the United Nations Mine Action Service is deeply important and already in place. We intend to continue our humanitarian commitments in favor of Somalia also in 2018. To this end, we have already allocated €4 million for these activities, but we will scale up this initial pledge by adding further resources, for example, in the field of demining. We also continue in 2018 our efforts for the stabilization and the development of Somalia. To this end, an amount of €20 million has already been allocated. To conclude, I want to join the spirit of this forum by saying that we need a collective effort and obviously point on education, on women, on the concept of leadership that is inclusive and progressive. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister. So far, it's only those who have traveled from very far and have promised debt relief or more money that has been given some extra speaking time. So maybe this is fair to everybody. We will continue. Thank you. We will continue and give the floor to the Deputy Minister for Foreign Affairs from Finland, Mr. Samuli Virtanen.
Thank you, Marco. Tusen tack. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we warmly welcome all the positive steps taken by the government of Somalia towards more inclusive politics and more comprehensive security. You've made tangible progress on the economic reforms and recovery, and Finland supports the federal government and member states in this endeavour together with partners such as the World Bank. Better financial management, coupled with more accountable state institutions that make fiscal transfers to the federal member states, will help to bring basic services to all people. And this is a crucial aim for us in developing cooperation with Somalia. We also continue supporting particularly the well-being of women and girls. It will benefit not only peace and security in Somalia, but also the country's economic and political development. We back Somalia's efforts to improve health care for mothers and children in partnership with UNFPA and IOM. We will work hand in hand with Somalia also by providing crisis management professionals, supporting civil society organisations, providing humanitarian support and facilitating evolving business cooperation. Our Somali diaspora is closely engaged in all these fields, and we take big pride in their crucial work. Sustainable results can only be achieved when the country leads its own future. The enhanced Somali ownership and search for unity was clearly expressed last year when the Somali government requested support from Finland for a structured national reconciliation process, which will be Somali-led, Somali-owned, and involve all the Somalis. We stand shoulder to shoulder with Somalia on your path of addressing the past grievances and resolving current active conflicts. We also want to work towards improved international coordination and more streamlined support to reconciliation. We remain fully committed in supporting the state-building process of a stable Somalia, which is based on the rule of law, democracy and respect for human rights, where all people, women and men, can live in peace and dignity. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now we give the floor to the State Minister for Political Affairs from Ethiopia, Mrs. Kasai Rutsemene.
Thank you, Madam Chair. May I first take this opportunity to express my sincere appreciation to the European Union, the Government of Sweden and the Federal Government of Somalia for organizing this high-level forum on Somalia. We are witnessing several positive developments in Somalia in the political, security and economic spheres. Likewise, I would like to extend gratitude to all partners for their emerging consensus to support Somalia's endeavors to lasting security and recovery. The IGAD and all troop-contributing countries have been calling for the need to have seamless transition in the Somalia security sector. We therefore have been cautioning against the untimely drawdown of AMISOM. The situation therefore warrants AMISOM's presence to remain critical for Somalia to protect the political process, building its security institutions, enable reforms and take the necessary steps to assume responsibility for security across the country. That is why securing sustainable financing for AMISOM and for the Somali security forces should be at the heart of this forum. The economic recovery measures we are thinking of should focus on assisting the Somali federal government to unlock its economic potentials through creating enabling regulatory frameworks for investment and private sector developments, infrastructure developments, proper economic activities and employment generating schemes. In connection with this, women's participation is vital in achieving and sustaining peace in Somalia. As the most vulnerable group in times of conflicts and as the main actors in peace building and reconstruction efforts, women should be represented meaningfully and properly in the Somali peace process. Excellencies, we believe it's our shared understanding that the peace and stability of Somalia is closely linked to regional and global peace and security. In this regard, sustainable peace and stability in Somalia remains the primary objective of Ethiopia. Ethiopia has followed a forward-looking approach and in the spirit of good neighborliness to support the security sector, deploying more than 4,000 peacekeeping forces under AMISOM, advancing capacity building, collaboration in education, state building and reconstruction efforts in Somalia. During his recent official visit to Somalia, my new Prime Minister, Dr. Abiy Ahmed, had agreed to deepen the cooperation to effectively counter terrorism and deal with cross-border security challenges and to enhance the economic cooperation. Excellencies, it would be remiss of me if I do not mention the current developments on bilateral relations between Ethiopia and Eritrea, which has paramount significance on the peace and security in the Horn of Africa region. Ethiopia and Eritrea recently signed a joint declaration of peace and friendship agreement that can reverse the no war, no peace situation in favor of love and peace. I hope this courageous move of the two brotherly nations will add unprecedented dimension in boosting peace and stability in the region. Excellencies, in this connection, that I wish to express confidence that the outcome of this forum will further strengthen cooperation and relations between the federal government and international partners to meaningfully support the Somalia Transitional Plan. I thank you.
You're doing really well, I have to say. We now immediately give the floor to the Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs from Uganda, Mr. Okello Oryem. The floor is yours.
Madam Chairperson, colleagues, ministers, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Madam Chairperson, let me take this opportunity first and foremost to thank the joint hosts for convening this meeting of the federal government of Somalia, Kingdom of Sweden and the European Union. Let me congratulate the federal government of Somalia and all the partners for remarkable progress so far attained in the peace efforts towards Somalia's stabilization. The positive developments and Somalia's relative stability would hardly have been possible without the contribution and sacrifice of AMISOM and the Somalia security forces. We also acknowledge and appreciate the support that the African Union has provided to AMISOM, which is the flagship of the missions of the AU. Somalia is going through an important phase in consolidating its states, institutions, including the building of its national security forces, which will pave the way for the gradual drawdown of AMISOM. The efforts by the federal government of Somalia and the federal member states in pursuing inclusive politics are commendable, and we would encourage that progress to continue. We further commend the efforts so far taken by the federal government of Somalia, AMISOM and international partners towards implementation of the Phase 1 of Somalia Transition Plan, and encourage all stakeholders to support its timely implementation to ensure that the hard-earned gains are preserved. AMISOM was never intended to be in Somalia forever, and that is why it is essential that Somalia gets ready and is supported to shoulder its responsibility in providing security for its people. It is crucial that the drawdown of AMISOM is synchronized with corresponding strengthening of Somalian security forces and other institutions of government. The failure to carefully manage this process would imperil the political and security gains already made. If not managed properly, there is a risk of strategic reversals and loss of the gains achieved so far. Uganda remains committed to support the people of Somalia until a total peace is achieved. Finally, Madam President, Uganda wishes to wholly and heartily associate itself with the speech made by the AU, presented by the AU Commission for Peace and Security here. I thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Minister. Now I give the floor to Ms. Bella Bird, who is the country director of the World Bank. Yeah. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Chair, and all protocols observed. Let me firstly just say a word of congratulations to the government for leading an agenda of inclusion which has been strongly reflected, I believe, in the way this two-day conference has been conducted. In particular, bringing in both the public and the private sector into dialogue, which is critical for unlocking investment growth and jobs for young Somali women and men, as well as bringing together the centre and the regions, and also including the most vulnerable, IDPs and women who are a subject of a special session. Secondly, I want to note briefly that Somalia is emerging at an important time of change in the wider Horn of Africa. Important opportunities are opening up for regional economic integration with the new dynamics of leadership in the Horn of Africa. And the opportunity certainly is emerging to lay the economic underpinnings for peace and security to be established and to be sustained in this important part of Africa. And I wanted just to note that the World Bank is certainly willing to play our part in deepening regional economic integration in the Horn of Africa for the benefit of Somalia and its neighbours. Thirdly, I wanted to thank His Excellency the President and the Presidents of the federal member states for participating over these 2 days in the last night's high-level dialogue on reform and debt relief, and for constructively looking forward together at the opportunities that lie ahead. It was certainly confirmed to me through that dialogue that the stronger the political consensus is behind the economic reform agenda, the greater the chance Somalia has that it will make progress towards full economic recovery. Fourthly, I'm very pleased to announce that due to the excellent progress that the government has been able to make on economic reforms under your leadership, Your Excellency, has enabled the World Bank to get to a position of being able to ask our board for $140 million in new grants from IDA's pre-arrears clearance facility, and this is planned for September this year. Now, this is a major milestone. It will be the first time in 30 years that IDA will finance a government in Somalia. The funds, if our board approves them, will indeed help to accelerate the debt relief process by supporting government expenditures using government systems in areas such as the delivery of basic services through the budget, strengthening public financial management, revenue mobilisation and rebuilding the financial sector. The funds will also help the government to respond to the drought through investing in water management systems and livelihoods. These funds are benchmarked to government reforms, and because they utilise the budget and intergovernmental systems, they will require accountability at all levels of government. Finally, I want to express my thanks to those governments present that have so generously contributed to the Multi-Partner Fund, which in advance of full IFI normalisation has enabled the World Bank to help build Somalia's institutions, working very closely with the government of Somalia, and brought them to a level of functionality so that they can begin to deliver services to the people, as well as provide a platform for alignment of development partner funds. We very much look forward to continuing not only our partnership with the government of Somalia, but our partnership with colleagues across the development community in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. As I said, pledging more money, and especially from the World Bank, gives some extra speaking time. So that was the case here as well. Now, immediately, without joking, to the Secretary of State of European Affairs from Portugal, Mrs. Ana Paula Zacarias. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Minister. Portugal stands by the efforts of the international community aiming at promoting political security, stability and development of Somalia and throughout the region. Portugal regrets the loss of innocent lives as a result of the continued attacks by extremist groups, and we commend Somalia for making progress in a number of critical areas despite extraordinary challenges. Just 4 points on the main pillars of the work ahead. On the political track, we encourage the growing coordination of the international community in assisting Somalia, namely in the context of the ongoing political and security sector reform. We fully support the efforts undertaken to strengthen the political roadmap, and we reaffirm the importance that the federal government of Somalia and federal member states work together towards a peaceful and democratic solution. Second, on the security track, we invite all actors to commit to the implementation of the transitional plan. To provide the adequate resources for its implementation is crucial in order to accompany the gradual transfer of security tasks from AMISOM to Somali security institutions. Alternative and sustainable burden share for AMISOM funding must be ensured, combining the EU funds with financial commitments of other donors. Third, on the economic track, we encourage the federal government of Somalia to maintain the focus on economic reforms in order to promote sustainable growth, to facilitate the access to concessional financing and achieve debt relief. Finally, on the humanitarian track, we reiterate the need to maintain significant humanitarian assistance, but also increased investment in recovery. We very much welcome the Somali government's commitment to address some of the root causes of the humanitarian disasters throughout the new resilience and recovery framework, and the compromise to abide by the international law, making sure that human rights are safeguarded throughout the territory by the Somali authorities. To conclude, I would like to say that we are strongly encouraged by the positive discussions and outcomes of this forum, and we are deeply committed to the peace, reconciliation, stability and development of the Somali people. Thank you.
Obrigado. We say to you also, Secretary of State of European Affairs, thank you, Under Secretary of State from Poland, Mr. Andrzej Papierz.
Thank you very much. First of all, I heard here that some countries have some interest in Somalia. Poland has not economical interest in Somalia until now, but we feel responsibility and we want to help and we contribute to Somalia. So thank you very much for time and I made my speech very short. Ladies and gentlemen, in January this year, Poland took on its role as a non-permanent member of the United Nations Security Council. It is an honor, but at the same time a great responsibility for issues of global and regional peace and security. This includes the situation in Somalia. Security in Somalia is paramount of the stability of the Horn of Africa and more widely the whole of Eastern Africa. Poland welcomes the progress achieved so far by the federal government of Somalia on security sector and political reforms. At the same time, we also aware to the fragility of the situation. We need to maintain our efforts to preserve and secure the gains and results already achieved. Constructive cooperation between the federal government of Somalia, the Somalia Federal Parliament, and the federal member states are crucial. We need to accelerate the implementation of the key elements of the reforms and the roadmap to the 2020 elections. We appreciate the commitment demonstrated by the federal government of Somalia to economic reform, in particular its efforts to strengthen budgetary discipline and raise the domestic revenue. We see them as key elements to sustainable co-finance the reforms and show the credibility of the federal government to the international donors, accelerating Somalia's economy recovery to support livelihoods and create the jobs in an essential component of restoring stability in this country. And we take note with appreciation of the Somali government's determination to take over the control of the security situation through the country. However, AMISOM presence remains vital until the Somali security forces are ready to assume the responsibility for country security. To take this opportunity to commend and pay tribute to AMISOM troops' efforts and sacrifice of blood for stability of Somalia. Poland, as a member of the EU, is a contributor of Somalia's security, most through African Peace Facility. We also participate in Atalanta mission to secure maritime routes of global importance. Poland strongly supports a phase 2 conditions-based transition plan for the gradual transfer of security responsibilities from AMISOM to the Somali security forces. We also need sustainable funding for AMISOM also from other non-EU donors. We call on the wider region to the Middle East and beyond to support Somalia in its efforts to rebuild the country and strengthen its security for the benefit of all people in Somalia. Thank you very much for attention.
Thank you very much for your intervention, and I now give the floor to the Director General of Africa from Turkey, Mr. Ahmed Demirel.
Madam Chair, Excellencies, this forum is an additional demonstration that the international community stands in its integrality with Somalia. Since the election, the new government achieved many reforms. Today we have a real chance to reverse the destiny of Somalia from suffering to hope, to peace and to prosperity. I would like to extend our appreciation for the strong determination and commitment of President Farmajo and also to the regional leaders. We welcome the significant political outcomes of the latest National Security Council meeting and commend Somali stakeholders for reaching key agreements on the transition plan, revenue sharing and electoral model for 2020. Political stability is the precondition for any kind of progress. Without proper political rules and laws, it will not be possible to guarantee political stability. The implementation of the 2020 political road map and to ensure one person, one vote election must remain a priority in our agenda. It's also crucial that elections in the federal member state should be held according to constitutional rules and time limits. Simultaneous progress in all fronts is needed for sustainable progress of Somalia. Last May, we endorsed the transition plan, which set a viable roadmap for security sector reform. I would like also to pay tribute to AMISOM for its strong engagement to Somalia. Despite all progress in the security sector, a hasty withdrawal of AMISOM will threaten all our achievements. In the long run, however, security of Somalia should be assured by Somalis. Needless to say, at this stage, security assistance to Somalia is very valuable. For its part, Turkey is operating a military training center in Mogadishu and contributing to the formation of the Somali National Army. We believe that all contribution of the international community in the security sector should be coordinated in order to avoid duplications or parallel structures. The Somali authorities should lead and supervise the coordination. We have to remind ourselves that the security situation in Somalia is still fragile. Internal or external destabilization of the federal government will benefit only Al-Shabaab and other terrorist groups. Finally, without access to funding, it will be impossible to rebuild Somalia. I would like to emphasize the importance of the progress made by Somalia in normalizing its relations with international financial institutions. Creating an appropriate economic environment for trade, production and business is also essential. Turkey is committed to continuing its monthly budget support to the federal government of Somalia in the amount of $2.5 million. On the other hand, we will also continue to promote the Turkish private sector to invest in Somalia. Thanking again for the hospitality extended to us, I will reiterate that Turkey will continue to stand shoulder to shoulder with Somalia and in solidarity with the international community. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. And I now give the floor to Mr. Bård Ludvig Thorheim, the political advisor to the Minister of Foreign Affairs from Norway.
Thank you, Minister Wallström. Delivering on the ambitious reform agenda in Somalia is a huge challenge. Together with its partners, the federal government and the federal member states of Somalia have achieved commendable results. We welcome progress on security sector reform and on fostering a more inclusive and stable political environment. On economic reform, progress is particularly substantial. Somalia is establishing policies and reforms required for full normalization of the relationship to the international financial institutions. This is of vital importance. The government has further made the fight against corruption a top priority. Norway strongly supports this ambition. We are keen to see it move from design to delivery. We are pleased to see that governance structures have become more effective, transparent, and accountable at all levels. This is key to progress. All should make it their top priority to sustain and expedite the reform agenda. Norway is committed to play its part to incentivize reform. Through pooling resources and harmonization actions, we will attain our common objectives more effectively. Norway encourages increased use of pooled funds and more funds on country system. We believe this is the right thing to do, and now is the right time to do it. The Surge project under the World Bank Multi-Partner Fund demonstrates the benefits of reform. My government has therefore this week decided to provide additional $55 million to the World Bank Multi-Partner Fund over the coming 3 years. These funds will support economic reforms and service delivery throughout Somalia. They will enable both the federal government and the federal member states to be more relevant in people's daily lives. Norway views the UN as a key partner in supporting efforts towards more inclusive and stable politics. Through the UN Multi-Partner Trust Fund, we will provide $26 million over the coming 3 years to the constitutional review process, local governance, and human rights. In conclusion, Norway strongly believes that this moment in time provides an opportunity for significant progress in Somalia. We are committed, and we will continue to support the Somali people and their government. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll tell you that I now have 6 more speakers, and we ought to be finished by 5:45, ideally. We'll just go on. I'm happy to give the floor to Mr. Yassem Al-Boudawi, who is the ambassador of Kuwait to the European Union. Ambassador, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mrs. Wallström. Excellencies, distinguished guests, allow me first and on behalf of the government of the State of Kuwait to extend our heartfelt gratitude to the Republic of Somalia, the European Union, and the Kingdom of Sweden for organizing and hosting the Somalia Partnership Forum. This forum is an excellent opportunity for the international community to renew its commitment to supporting Somalia's stability and development. In addition, we must all applaud the Somali government efforts to achieve an ambitious agenda of reforms based on the three main pillars: political, security, and economic. And this message is to Mr. President. Rest assured that nothing has gone unnoticed, and you are extremely appreciated by the international community for all the great and the steadfast efforts you have taken to revitalize your country in every aspect. Ladies and gentlemen, there is no better opportunity than today to announce that the State of Kuwait will host an international donor conference in support of education in Somalia. We in Kuwait firmly believe that education is one of the most important, if not the most important tool in combating extremism, terrorism, and poverty. It is the only way to transform challenges into opportunities and build a future of development, prosperity, stability, and security. This conference in Kuwait will serve as a cornerstone to secure the future generations of Somalia, and we all call upon the international community to join our efforts and actively participate in this conference. Ladies and gentlemen, once you educate a child, you educate a generation. Together, my friends, we will continue the efforts of the United Nations in supporting Somalia's transitional phase in every aspect. We have responsibilities toward the Somali people, and they need to feel our commitment on the social and economic levels and on their day-to-day life. Ladies and gentlemen, in 2017 only, the State of Kuwait provided 50 million in response to international calls to support the humanitarian situation in Somalia. Now it's time to switch from crisis mode to investment mode in Somalia. We call upon the international community to invest in Somalia in order to create jobs, opportunities for the youth, and make the best of the talents and the skills of this country enjoys. Furthermore, Kuwait has provided 1.5 million in agriculture technical assistance, as well as grants worth of 28 million allocated to airport development. In addition, Kuwait Fund recently also decided to ease the debt burden of Somalia. Ladies and gentlemen, the Kuwait Fund for Arab Economic Development, upon a royal directive from His Highness the Emir of the State of Kuwait, Sheikh Sabah Al-Ahmed Al-Jaber Al-Sabah, is engaging in discussion to discover ways to provide additional loans, grants, and technical assistance to Somalia. I am confident that we will witness rapid partnership in the very near future, as we truly do not have time to waste, and action is needed more than ever. Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, Somalia and its people are calling upon us to help them overcome all agonies and disaster that they have gone through. So let us all help without setting conditions and assist without making any judgments. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ambassador. I now immediately give the floor to Linda Cameron, who is the Director General for Country Programmes from DFID in the UK.
Many thanks. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. I wanted to acknowledge the momentum that's been generated since and as a result of the London conference. The kind of discussions and decisions we've seen have been unthinkable a few years ago. And I think the challenge now is to maintain the momentum and implement the commitments made in the communiqué and in the mutual accountability framework. To do so, we all need to redouble our efforts, and the UK stands ready to support the government as it turns words into actions. The UK is proud of its track record in supporting Somalia. This year we will be providing £313 million to to support governance, security and economic recovery, and indeed to meet humanitarian needs. We welcome the Federal Government of Somalia and Federal Member States' commitments on elections and the wider constitutional review, and look forward to supporting you to deliver one-person, one-vote elections in 2020. The wider reconciliation efforts in the region create huge opportunities for Somalia, and we call on all of the international community to use their influence constructively to give Somalia the best possible chance of realising this opportunity. Like most people here, we've been really excited to see the progress in economic reforms and welcome the Federal Government of Somalia's commitment to accelerate progress and deliver even tougher reforms moving forward. We've been particularly impressed by the commitment to deeper engagement with the private sector, increasing investment in support of recovery and reconstruction. We should all be very proud of having averted famine last year, but we need to learn and apply the lessons from this, delivering on commitments to put resilience at the heart of our approach and help build a Somali economy that can withstand future shocks like this. Building on all this now depends on faster progress to improve security. We welcome the transition plan. We now need all international partners to get fully behind it, realigning resource and activity. We look forward to supporting AMISOM and troop contributing countries as they reconfigure to deliver this. The UK commends AMISOM and calls on additional donors to step forward to ensure predictable and sustainable funding. We need to see more progress on implementation of the national security architecture and integration of regional forces. We recognise the difficulties of this, but we strongly believe that making use of capable regional forces will be key to delivering Somali contribution to transition. If real progress and action can now be delivered on security, it will transform prospects for Somalia politically and economically, and ensure that the strides now being made forward to settling in the constitution and laying the foundations for future prosperity are locked in for the next generation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We still have 5 speakers, but I'm sure we can make it. I now give the floor immediately to Mr. Mohammed Abu Shahab, the ambassador of the UAE. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson, and all protocols and appreciation observed. The UAE and Somalia share deep and historical ties based on mutual respect. For several decades, the UAE has been at the forefront of international efforts to support Somalia and return peace and stability to its people. To this end, we have provided multifaceted, wide-ranging support, including humanitarian aid, development assistance, security training, funding for salaries, and providing logistical support to the Somali armed forces. We have also assisted counter-piracy efforts off the Somali coast and supported regional development projects that contribute to socio-economic development. Our efforts to bring peace and stability to Somalia and its people have always been embedded within the approach of the wider international community and closely coordinated with successive Somali governments. In all of these efforts, the UAE's underlying goal has been to support the Somali people in their determination to build a more stable and prosperous future. The UAE remains unwavering in this commitment to the Somali people and is willing to explore further avenues of supporting their ambitions. For this to happen, we need to work together to avoid distractions and divisions and remain focused on our shared goal, a stable, peaceful, and united Somalia. This support for stability in Somalia firmly aligns with the UAE's wider efforts to foster peace and prosperity in the Horn of Africa. Long-term stability in the Horn and the Red Sea is of enormous strategic value to all of us, given the region's critical role for international trade and commerce. Threats to the freedom of navigation by dangerous non-state actors, underdevelopment, and political instability, as well as extremism and terrorism, are the main challenges to this stability. We all share a common interest in tackling these challenges. Recent historical developments in relations between Ethiopia and Eritrea, which the UAE fully supports, represent a potential game changer for the region and deserve our recognition and support. The UAE is committed to working with its partners in the region and the international community to build on this historic achievement to foster peace and stability across the Horn of Africa. In line with these commitments, the UAE is financing various projects and initiatives in the wider Red Sea region that are aimed at fostering socio-economic development, stability, and prosperity. The UAE welcomes the agreement between the Federal Government of Somalia and the Federal Member States of 5 June 2018. The UAE has also given its strong support to the new Partnership for Somalia and has pledged to support the efforts of the federal government of Somalia as set out in the National Development Plan, as well as when it comes to implementing vital security sector reforms. We welcome AMISOM's commitment to the implementation of the transition plan and applaud the sacrifice of troop-contributing countries in supporting Somalia's security, particularly in the fight against al-Shabaab and other armed opposition groups. We also follow with interest the encouraging progress in the discussions between the federal government of Somalia and the international financial institutions and their potential to advance Somali unity. The UAE stands ready to support these efforts under the right circumstances. As we enter a new critical phase in Somalia's transition, we believe that it is of paramount importance that all actors, international stakeholders, regional Somali entities, and the central government alike, not engage in divisive and competitive strategies. After decades of conflict, Somalia has a real chance to move forward towards greater stability and prosperity. Let's not squander this progress by falling prey to unnecessary divisions. If we don't work together, the only ones that stand to gain are spoilers and terrorist groups like al-Shabaab and Daesh. It is therefore in our common interest to advance a common agenda to the benefit of Somalia, its people, the wider region, and the international community. At this critical juncture, and building on the recent positive developments between Ethiopia and Eritrea, the UAE calls for a constructive and unified international approach that fulfills the hopes and aspirations of the people of Somalia and allows us all to move forward together. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now the 4 remaining speakers will have to use only 1 minute each if we are to make it through the list here. So I'm sorry for that, but Mr. Erik Strohmeyer, the Deputy Assistant Secretary from the State Department of the United States of America.
I'll give that a try. Madam High Representative, Foreign Minister Wallström, thank you so much for convening this event. Excellencies, the U.S. remains a committed partner to the Somali people and government as they shoulder the challenging task of simultaneously rebuilding strong institutions, a stable democracy, and a sustainable peace. Since the electoral transition nearly 18 months ago, they have made laudable progress on all these fronts. We are confident that can be sustained and even accelerated. On the political track, we're encouraged by the recent agreement between the federal government and its member states on an electoral model that can fulfill the commitment made to the people of Somalia for the elections in 2020. It is imperative that the government and parliament move quickly to translate this agreement into a law that can be passed and implemented to ensure sufficient time for its enactment. It is similarly essential that the critical work on the constitutional review and federalism continue to move forward, particularly with respect to revenue and resource sharing and security force enhancement. On the security agenda, we commend the federal government, federal member states, and AMISOM partners for the progress made on the transition plan, and we urge our Somali partners to implement the plan swiftly. The U.S. is strongly committed to ensuring the success of the transition through our support to AMISOM and the development of Somali military and civilian security forces. We commend AMISOM's troop contributors for their continued sacrifice and dedication in support of Somalia. We thank the EU for its continued commitment to generously support AMISOM through the transition. The U.S. has provided nearly $1.1 billion in voluntary assistance to AMISOM to date, and an additional $430 million in support of Somali security development. On the econ front, we commend the Somalia's reform efforts and the support of the World Bank, the IMF, and others to provide Somalia the means to advance its path forward to eventual debt relief. Continued progress on revenue generation remains imperative. We welcome the international partners' plans for additional direct budgetary support to strengthen governance and promote fiscal federalism. And lastly, in conclusion, the progress in Somalia that has achieved in recent years is remarkable, but not yet irreversible. Over the past year, we have seen external rivalries and competition unrelated to Somalia undermine progress and shared international community goals. It is incumbent upon all of us to remain united in support of Somalia at this time. We all have a huge stake in its success. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for trying. So we go immediately to Georg Schmidt, the Africa Director from Germany. Please.
Thank you very much. I'll talk about 3 points: security, politics, and economics. Security, we welcome strongly the federal government of Somalia and taking the process of the security transition forward. So with that transition plan, for the first time, we have a plan that we all agree to, so let's implement it. I would also like to acknowledge the sustained efforts and sacrifices of AMISOM. AMISOM is essential for the progress we have made. and it will remain crucial in the transition process ahead. I think it's very important. We talked about it. A good example for the efficient use of donor funds is the joint police program. Germany has more than doubled our engagement in the Somali police sector since 2016, and we're planning to join the JPP with an initial contribution of 2.85 million euros. On the political side, we welcome the adoption of the inclusive political roadmap in January, as well as steps that have been undertaken with regards to prepare for universal elections. Somalis expect and should get one person, one vote elections by 2020. On the economic development, up to date, Germany has committed approximately 270 million euro for stabilization, reconstruction and development in Somalia. We all, as donors, as partners, were able to avert a famine last year, and I encourage all of us to also talk about it. I think it's much easier to also galvanize support for a positive story. We should talk more about our successes also in development. We do that in Germany, and I'm very glad to announce today that even though we're in the middle of a funding cycle, Germany will top up the existing development portfolio by around 65 million euros this year. So this makes 69 million euros of fresh money. Whatever support in all the areas come from the outside, the success of Somalia's transformation hinges on the will and capacity of the Somalis themselves. They have shown extraordinary resilience, and I think we all can pull through this together. Thank you very much.
Okay, so the clock is wrong. It's actually 5:02. From Denmark, Ms. Mette Knudsen, can you make it in one sentence almost? The ambassador to Somalia.
Thank you. I'm speaking on behalf of Undersecretary Jesper Møller Sørensen from Copenhagen, who had to return. Macroeconomic front, the normalization of Somalia's relationship with international financial institutions is crucial, and to achieve this, further reforms and progress are needed. The progress will be increasingly demanding, and to succeed, the Somali government must strengthen its alliance with the Somali people, international financial institutions, creditors, and the private sector, as well as initiating a dialogue between the federal government and the authorities of Somaliland. Politically, I will skip that and just align myself with what everybody else has been saying about the importance of the constitutional process and roles, especially also of women in that regard. I would say that for stability to take hold, it's also necessary that basic needs of the population must be met, and that demands a stronger partnership with the private sector in creating jobs. I'm very pleased that the Danish Investment Fund for Developing Countries, IFU, together with its Nordic sister organizations, are testing the waters and start investing in Somalia. Security-wise, we just want to stress that we are deeply concerned about the continued conflict between Somaliland and Puntland, and we urge all parties to observe peace, refrain from further military conflict, and engage in a political dialogue to solve both immediate issues and also address the more fundamental issues between Somalia and Somaliland. As I have mentioned also earlier, there's a need for a dialogue there. We are ready to launch very soon the third phase of our regional peace and stabilization program, where we will continue our support for AMISOM's civilian stabilization efforts, the Somalia Stability Fund, disengagement and rehabilitation of Al-Shabaab defectors, as well as supporting the UNODC in a comprehensive regional program on organized cross-border crime. And we will also very soon be ready to launch our next 5-year country program. I just want to say also on humanitarian issues and displacements that we are very happy with the discussions we've had here on durable solutions and making the new way of working and grand bargain a reality in Somalia. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Well done. The final word must go to China. The final word goes to China. Please be very short because people have to leave, and we want to meet the press to say something to them.
Yes,
China, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you. I think there should be some voice from the Asian part of this world. Although Somalia is miles away, it is important to us, especially to China. China believes that the root cause of the Somalia issue is development, which needs long-term commitment and comprehensive solutions. Under the Somali-led and the Somali-owned principle, the international community should continue to provide targeted and effective assistance and support to Somalia, so as to supplement the endeavor by the Somali government and ensure the Somali peace process move ahead in the right direction. China has always been a strong supporter of the Somali peace and reconstruction process, and over the years provided assistance to Somalia to the best of our ability. We have dispatched food, medicine, humanitarian aid, and cash on many occasions. China also commends the work, the peacekeeping operations by the African Union in Somalia. Up till now, $7.8 million in cash has been provided to AMISOM, and another $1 million will be made available this year. In conclusion, China is willing to work together with the international community to enhance cooperation and coordination with the Somalia federal government in order to realize lasting peace, stability, and development in Somalia. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. That was an excellent summing up, and your voice was also needed. It's on me to just say thank you to all of you. I will leave the final word to Federica Mogherini, but I want to say thank you to all of you for coming, for participating, for being so constructive and clear and contributing in every possible way. We do this because we care about Somalia and your future. And the things we've heard has been repeated over and over again, from security to youth and the need for development. So thank you also for all the pledges and the money that you've promised and the other support that you have promised throughout the debate. And forgive me for being a bit strict at the end. Hope to see you all soon again. And we wish you all the best, Mr. President, and all of your government representatives that have been here, and we will continue to work with you. We stand by you. Thank you. Thank you.
On my side, only a word of thank you, first and foremost, to the President for his presence here today with us and the difficult work he's doing with the government in Somalia. And a big thank you also to Wargo, to Sweden, but also to the African Union, to the United Nations, strong partners that together with us have prepared this conference, and to all of you for the support and also the pledges. It was not a pledging conference, but it's always welcomed, right, Mr. President? I really thank you. You can count on the European Union to continue to be at your side, as we've always been. And looking forward now to turn all the good things we've said today into concrete actions on the ground in Somalia for a better future for your country. Thank you very much.
Thank you again for hosting, and of course for each and everyone here for your participation in this partnership forum, and really appreciate for confirming again that Somalia has made a tremendous progress in our financial management system, as well as political and security gains over the year. And we will continue definitely to build the confidence with our international partners, especially in the area of economic development. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Sure.
If I have to officially say so, this brings to an end our conference. Thank you very much for having participated.